Yo, so I don't know if I should say hello or long time no see. For those of you who don't know, hi, my name is Bailey and welcome to the agency. The agency used to be a radio show about local bands in the Rhode Island Mass scene, and I would play a bunch of music and talk about shows that I had been to, and we are moving on to podcast in 2020. I know, fucking bougie, right? And my plan for the podcast is pretty similar, but a little bit extra. Obviously, I'm going to talk about bands that I love in the Rhode Island Mass scene, but also any bands that I'm introduced to through the Rhode Island Mass scene. So if any touring bands come here and I fall in love with them, I will absolutely talk about them. I also have plans for a bunch of cool shit, like interviews and guest spots and EP release shows and hopefully a bunch of other cool stuff. So hopefully it'll be cool. I'm really excited about it. I hope you are also really excited about it. Let's talk. So for the first episode, I wanted to first of all introduce myself. Hello, my name is Bailey. For those of you who don't know, I like to call myself the band mom in the local scene. I make jokes that I'm everybody's mom, and I'm always trying to take care of everybody. And I have this podcast. This is the podcast. Look, now we're introduced. We've been acquainted. I also wanted to talk about what I had been up to during this little hiatus that I took to transfer from radio to podcast. So from about mid-December until literally right now, I had taken a little break from doing this to get a couple things squared away and planned and booked. I also booked a show that's coming up soon, which we'll talk about later. Also doing some promo stuff and just figuring out exactly how this was going to work. So I took a little bit of a break, and I did a bunch of shit during that break. A bunch of stuff that I'm going to talk about. Saw a bunch of cool people. And I also want to talk about my New Year's resolutions, which are kind of interesting for a little bit. And also, I want to introduce you to this band that I'm currently obsessed with. So let's get started. Firstly, I think I'll start talking about my New Year's resolutions in relation to the local scene anyways. I know that a lot of people are not really into the whole resolution thing. I don't think it'll ever hurt. Obviously, keeping in mind things that are attainable, but setting a goal for yourself in the new year on what you would change from last year, I don't think there's any harm in it. So my two in regards to the local scene were that, one, I want to get better at going to shows alone, mainly because I don't have a ton of friends in the local scene. And I say that in regards to the Providence scene. I have a bunch of friends in, like, the Mass scene, but they're all mad far away from me. So, like, if I'm going to a show and none of my friends are going, then I just won't go. And that's kind of been stopping me from seeing a bunch of cool shit, was because I didn't feel comfortable enough or confident enough to go by myself. So I wanted to work on that. And the second thing was that I wanted to explore more out of the Providence scene. I am a little bit spoiled in the Providence scene, whether it be from like self-put on shows at AS220 or anything that comes into Dusk or anything involved with the Hammer Collective. When it comes to finding good music in Providence, I get to be very lazy. I don't even have to look, I just show up and there's great stuff right in front of me. Which is great. What a first world problem to have, right? I'm sorry, my local music scene's too good. But the one downside to that is that it does actually allow me to be kind of lazy. And it allows a lot of shit to slip under the rug for me. Because I'm not searching or looking or really going out of my way to find anything. There are a lot of bands that are absolutely insanely good and absolutely fire that I just, like, don't come across because they may not come to Providence, and, like, what is Massachusetts, a 40-minute drive away from me? There's no reason for me not to. So those were my two goals. If you have any goals in regards to, like, local scene stuff, feel free to drop them below. If you're trying to drop an EP this year or join a band this year or be like me and go to shows on your own this year, let me know. I kind of want to see what other people would like to do. But anyways, so that's what I'm starting the year off with. I will keep you updated on how it goes. Oh, also this podcast. That was the third one. I also wanted to do this podcast, so we're doing that. Check. But yeah, that was basically what I was moving into 2020 in the headspace of, and I hope that it works out. Like I said, let me know what your resolutions were in the comments. But anyways, I started going to a couple shows right after I closed out this show. So even though that was like 2019, I'm going to talk about it for a sec. I went to the Missed Opportunities EP release show, which was really, really good, actually. They have just dropped an EP. It's a self-titled EP, and you should absolutely look into it. My good friend Adam is in that band, and the rest of the band members are also super nice. You should look that up. Missed Opportunities on Spotify. I'll leave a link in the description. And the show was them, the Girls on Saturn, Courtesy Wave, Kept, and Twinbrook. I love all of those bands, and it was a great show. And then something interesting that is gonna mock up the rest of this podcast, basically, is I went to a charity show in Allston, Mass. For those of you who do know me, Allston, Mass, I'm Providence-based. So Allston is bumfuck far away from me. I'm not gonna lie to you. But the people hosting it were Cherry Brat, The Fairview, and Bullpup. And I love Cherry Brat and The Fairview. I could never say enough good things about either of those bands. And the charity was the Joyful Heart Foundation, which aids people who are victims of like domestic violence and stuff like that. So it was important to me, so it was kind of worth it to drive the hour or so. So I went. And obviously Cherry Brat played a great show, The Fairview played a great show, and then I'm sitting in the crowd with my friend Alex, and I turn to him, and I go, you know, I've been here for like an hour. I have no fucking clue who Bullpup is. And he just looks at me and goes, yeah, you'll like him. And I don't know if you could tell by this giant tangent I'm about to go on about how much I love Bullpup, but he was not wrong, no. So, this band, Bullpup, gets on stage, and the first thing that comes out of this lead singer's mouth is, not word for word, but as close as I could get it, hey, there are a lot of talented screamers in the audience, and I am just a small twink. Please be nice to me. And I think in that exact moment, they had my heart. I was done. I was good. They played a phenomenal set. They have all the regular band stuff plus a piano, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the best thing about that set, I want to say, is, you know those songs that are so catchy or so like easy to remember that by the end of the song you are also singing along with them even if you've never heard it? They had one of those songs which was really, really good. I mean, pushed them for me. I was having a great time. I love being able to like learn the chorus mid-set, so that was great. But they were good, and then I didn't think much of it, and I went home and I found out that they had raised collectively a little bit over $1,000 for the Joyful Heart Foundation, which was insane. What an insane impact. Good on all of them. I respect every single member of every single band that was there for coming together to put that together. And I want to say a week later, I was looking them up because I wanted to find the songs that I had heard while at the show, because like I said, they were good. And they have 2 things out on Spotify. They have 2 singles, like a double single that is called I Love You and I Know. Those are kind of old. And then they have a full-length album called No One Must Die, which is where the songs that I had listened to, most of them came off of. So I listened to the entire album front to back, and oh my fucking god. Do you ever hear something that is so good that you like feel it in your bones? No? Okay. I was just listening to this album and like I felt it inside my like chest. Like every single line of every single one of these songs just hit me so well. And I've never had a band affect me like that. It was insane. I couldn't get certain lyrics out of my head for like weeks. Like sometimes even now I'll just be like doing my business or like in the office or whatever, and like one of their lyrics pops into my head, and then I have to listen to that song like right away, and I think that's wicked insane. So if you, like me a couple weeks ago, have no idea anything about Bullpup, let me introduce you to. They're a drama punk band from Mass. They said, like I said, the regular drums, bass, guitar, and then they have a piano, which is insane. I am a huge fan of anytime a band does something outside of the traditional band dynamic, mainly because it's difficult to find musicians that mesh well enough to be in a band in the first place, but that's increasingly difficult with an instrument with a much smaller pool of musicians that can play it, like piano, or for example, one of my favorite bands, Wax On, they have a trumpet player, and I know when the demand for like an instrument like that is so high and the pool of musicians that can play it are so low, it makes it hard to successfully make a band out of it. So kudos. I'm always a fan of variety and changing it up in as far as the local scene goes. And there's a lot of variety in Bullpup regardless. This is where in my notes I tried to explain to you what they sound like, but I literally cannot give you an example or relate them to anything. Which is really cool. I love bands that sound so unique that there's not really anything that I can say that they sound like, and that's really what Bullpup is. That might be because I'm not super familiar with the genre of drama punk, or that in relation to like more of a local dynamic, and that's on me. I should really look into that, and I'm probably planning on doing that. But as far as I'm concerned, Bullpup is unlike anything I have ever heard. And I can definitely pick out, like, some of their influences, but to say that they sound like anything is a super disservice to the band itself. The theater background does, like, appear heavily. Like, I definitely feel this Broadway influence within their album. I don't know if that's gonna continue, because they have unreleased songs that are probably coming out this year that they do play live, and I don't get the same Broadway energy from those songs. I don't know if that will change, like, post-production once it's all, like, mixed and mastered and everything. I might be wrong about that, so don't, like, quote me on anything, but I just don't know if that heavy Broadway background is gonna appear so much in their local stuff. Just wanted to let you know. There are a lot of reasons that I became obsessed with Bullpup. One of them is because they sound a lot like what I would write if I wrote better. And if any of them are listening to this, they're gonna, like, kill me for that comment. But they write subject matter that is interesting to me, with this magical capability to be relatable while also feeling like a Broadway soundtrack, which is super funky, dude. A lot of it speaks to me directly as an artist in regards to, they talk a lot about the struggle of wanting to be something and be significant while dealing with this, like, overarching knowledge that they're not really remarkable in any way, which hits super fucking hard, dude. That hit. And being relatable is, like, a really dangerous line to walk. I feel like sometimes bands try to be relatable to such an extent that it almost becomes, like, less powerful. It's an interesting line to walk between being relatable and being generic, and Bullpup is anything but generic. Sometimes it feels like this album was, like, written for me, and that's not to be selfish or to say that I'm special or anything. Honestly, I just think they do such a good job of being relatable, in such a raw way that I think anybody could find themselves in the album, and I think that's really fucking special, especially on, like, a local scale, to do something that I can feel like is my thing, and the person next to me could feel like is their thing. Like, that is something really powerful to me, so I really hope that you listen to them. I think that's what I've been gravitating towards. They also have this, like, weird dance within their lyrics between things that are very relatable about love and like self-worth, and that paired right next to lyrics about space and the world ending and Broadway. So it's a fucking phenomenon of an experience. And then, like, musicality-wise, there's this big variation from song to song, and even within one song itself, in the singer's way of singing. So, obviously, he has this, like, just singing voice, and then there's more of this, like, throaty sound that sits, like, in your gut, and then, like, at some points he's screaming, and the specific places in which he chooses to transition from voice to voice and how skillfully he does it really makes this band for me. I don't know if I could love this band the way that I love this band if the singer was just singing. I'm sure that the band or the songs would be, like, good regardless, but I don't know if it would deliver the way that it delivers for me if the lead singer did not have this capability to do this giant transition. And in regards to variation from song to song, I love when shit like that happens. My favorite band is Wax On, and they are big fiends of violent transitions in sounds from song to song. Some bands can do one thing great, and they're, like, insanely good at that one thing, and yo, I love that. But, like, some bands find strength in showing every variation of the shit that they can do, to the point where it would almost be a disservice to sound like just one thing, and the bands that embrace that shit have wicked props for me. So, like, things like Wax On and things like Bullpup. On just the album No One Must Die, they have stuff that's, like, really, really punk, and then they have stuff that is, like, a Broadway soundtrack, and then they have this weird in-between, and things that don't even fit within those. So bands that embrace the fact that they can do more than one thing have giant props for me. The way that the lyrics are written has kind of changed the way that I want to write, actually, and what I want to create and the content that I want to talk about. I have written a bunch of stuff in response to Bullpup, and also bands that I have been introduced to through Bullpup, but we'll get on that later. And I think that that is a really cool thing to be able to do as an artist, is inspire other artists to make art. There's something, like, really magical to be said about that, like your work inspiring other people to create work. So I love them. If you want to look them up, I will put their album No One Must Die in the description, as well as I have a playlist of everything that I have been listening to in or have gone to see in the month of January in regards to local stuff. It's called The Agency, The Playlist. I know. Clever. So I'll put that down if you want any other recommendations. Off of Bullpup's album, though, if you want a recommendation specifically from me, Maritz is a great song, and also Raven Road. They're gonna kill me for recommending that song, but I love that song. So over vacation, I got a little bit obsessed with Bullpup, and I went to see them right before Christmas, and then going back to my lineup of what I had done on the break. Sorry for that little tangent. Right after the new year, I started 2020 off right. I saw Have a Good Season, Never Coming Home, The Girls on Saturn, Grizzlies, and Frog, which are all bands that I love. This was like a fire lineup, but like with friendship. Have a Good Season was great, obviously. I love Never Coming Home, and every single member in that band, they are all wicked cool dudes and wicked great friends, and the lead singer Anthony is one of my best friends, actually, so it was wicked cool to be able to see them. You should stream their single Halloween on Spotify. It is my most listened to song for all of 2019, and it didn't come out until November, so you should listen to that. Also, The Girls on Saturn, I have good friends with them, and I booked them for something that we will talk about very soon, but not right now. Grizzlies, which has been good friends of me and the radio station that I work at for like a pretty long time. I went to high school with Cynthia, which is wicked cool. We didn't realize that until kind of recently. But yeah, definitely also look out Grizzlies and Frog. I love Frog. They're wicked cool dudes. And I actually accidentally adopted them recently. The short version of the story is they posted the flyer for this event, and I thought that Anthony from Never Coming Home had posted it, so I swiped up and told them that I, their mother, would be there, and then I realized that it wasn't Anthony and that it was Frog, and then I became their parent. So that's how that happened. And then pretty soon after that, I saw Bullpup again. Ha, you thought that I was done talking about this shit? Absolutely not. They did a weekender with them, Girl Scout cookies, and Runaway After Dark, and I went to one of the nights that was a house show. First of all, I don't like going to house shows of people that I don't know. I think it's weird to be in your house if I don't know you. That's just me. But I went because obviously I have this problem with Bullpup lately. I'm on this weird kick. The show was super duper great, and I got introduced to Runaway After Dark, which are a few girls and their drummer's a dude, and they are absolutely insanely good. I wish that they had anything that I could post to show you, but the second that they do, I definitely will be sharing it because I think they're insanely talented. Girl Scout cookies, I love Girl Scout cookies. And Nervous got added to my show. I also love Nervous, so it was pretty sick. The show was in Tewksbury, Massachusetts? Maybe? Bumfuck, dude, bumfuck far away from me. An hour and a half for a house show. I drove an hour and a half for a house show. That's how crazy I am about this band. But I went and I had a great time. They were actually like kind of like freaked out, not freaked out, but like confused as to why I drove so far to see them. I mean, I was too, to be fair. But so they played the show, and Raven Road is one of my favorite songs by them, but they don't ever play it. I don't know why. I think it's an underappreciated song. But I'm sitting there in this like dude's living room watching these bands play, and the lead singer is like tuning or something, and he goes, "Yeah, so this next song we never play, or we haven't played it since we like wrote it, but there's one girl here, and she drove from fucking Providence to see us, so we're gonna play that song for her, because she likes it." And when I tell you that made my entire week, I'm not even exaggerating. The fact that they played the song in somebody's living room after me driving an hour and a half, dude, it was just such a surreal, wicked fire experience. And, like, that's what I love about the local scene, is when cool shit like that happens. So I love them for that. If you guys are listening, thank you. It was a great time for me. So after that show, I saw the Fairview's home show. The Fairview went on tour. We missed them dearly. Their presence was missed. The absence that, like, all of my friends felt at shows that, like, Brenna and Jake and Nolan were not there for. Dude, that was insane. But they did their home show, and it was a great time. Stay Here came from Georgia, and I love Stay Here. If you're looking for, like, bands outside of the Rhode Island Mass scene, I absolutely recommend Stay Here. I also accidentally adopted those kids, like I accidentally adopted Frog, because I told Stay Here that I was Nolan's dad, which is true, I am Nolan's dad, and they were like, "Oh, wait, does that make you our dad?" And I was like, I guess so. So I then proceeded to adopt a bunch of dudes who are way taller than me. And they're my children now. If you guys are listening, I'm very proud of you. And also Bernsey was there, and not only is Bernsey a great performer and a beautiful musician, but also a ray of fucking sunshine, the sweetest person I've ever met, and so that was wicked cool to experience. So if you're looking for people outside of the Rhode Island Mass music scene, Stay Here has an EP out that I'll also put in the description, because it definitely deserves a listen. They're great, and Bernsey is also insane, so you should also check out Bernsey. And then pretty soon after that, American Beauty showed up. Yo, I love American Beauty. I won't even go on the tangent because I just did the whole Bullpup thing, but I'm a big fan of American Beauty, and it was super great to see them. A bunch of bands from Providence, Mass, opened for them, and then American Beauty played, and I had such a fucking great time. They have an EP that they just recently dropped. I'm gonna put it also in the description. Listen to Soy Boy or The Gang Gets Emo. My favorite is The Gang Gets Emo, but Soy Boy is also fire, so either or. But I'll drop that in the description as well. When we went to that show, this is actually kind of a funny story. I drove my friend Alex there because I love him. So I drove, I want to say 45 minutes to get him and then 45 minutes back to Providence where I'm originally located. And it started snowing. So by the time that the show was done and we got out and I was driving Alex home, it was blizzarding in the slush, and I was driving 45 minutes in this blizzard to pick up Alex, and then 45 minutes home by myself. And I got home and just sat there and played Soy Boy and was all right, well, I'm not dead, so so that was really funny. And then very recently, within the last weekend, my good friend Anthony landed this wicked cool show. It was his band, Never Coming Home, Sounds and Scenarios, The Bad Reminders, Hello Atlantic, It's Been Real, and The Burning Lights, which is a bunch of bands. It was at AS220 and it was insane. I love Sounds and Scenarios. I told my friend yesterday that Sounds and Scenarios is if I were to tell my friends that I love them while also throwing them into the fucking floor. And so that's how I feel about them. You should absolutely look them up. I'll drop some of their information down below as well. There's gonna be a lot of info in this description box, dude. And Never Coming Home, who I always love. They have this one song, YMCA, that I'm literally just sitting waiting for them to come out with a studio version of, so I don't have to keep listening to this live version that they posted on YouTube where the audio is not great, but I need to bop to the song, so I have to play it anyways. And all the bands there were also great. That was a really cool experience to go to. And then the day after was Homie Fest, and it was such a fucking good time to see everybody at Homie Fest. A lot of the people there I don't get to see on the reg, so it was wicked cool. Shout out to Gina and Twinbrook for getting that whole thing situated, and every other band that played, they were all insane. If you want highlights that are nothing about the actual music, highlights: Banana Men, Who Brought Bananas, The Naked Cat, and I Lost My Shoe in the Pit. Am I gonna give you context for any of those? Absolutely not. But if you want highlights kind of musically, they covered My Chemical Romance. Nolan got involved and guested in there. It was a great situation the whole time. It was exactly what it's labeled. It was Homie Fest, dude. It was a group of the most nice, most friendly people I have ever come in contact with, and it was a great fucking time, and I had a really good night. So that's what I've been up to. As far as not talking to you guys for a hot minute was, I do have some other stuff to talk about, which is a little bit of a self-promo. So I just talked for 20 minutes about how much I love Bullpup, and that is true. And also, seeing Bullpup has been pushing me on that original goal that I had for New Year's, which was to look into more local bands, because they don't really come to Providence ever. So to see them, I am kind of forced to go out into the Massachusetts scene and therefore get exposed to a bunch of cool bands that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. So I super appreciate them for that. In fact, I appreciated them that so much that I may or may not, I definitely did, book them in Providence pretty soon. So if you look them up, which I absolutely recommend that you do, once again, in the description, I got all your information for you, and you decide that you love them, which you should, because I love them, and you want to see them, but are not crazy enough to drive an hour and a fucking half the way that I did, which I do not blame you for, February 13th, they're going to be in Providence at Alchemy with me and all of my best friends. It's a charity event for the tragedies happening in Australia. I'm sure that you know about it, but if you don't, for the past few months, Australia has been in a drought, and bushfires are taking over the entire area, basically. 1 billion animals have died, and a lot of people have died. A lot of people have lost their houses, lost basically everything that they have to own physically. So we're putting on a show with a couple other bands. I'm not going to announce that yet because I don't think that any of the posters have dropped yet, but that'll happen within the next few days. But February 13th at Alchemy, a bunch of bands are going to play, and all of the proceeds are going to go to animal hospitals in Australia for all these animals that are losing their homes and have nowhere to go. And also, if I could be more than a little bit selfish, it's the 13th, and my birthday happens to be the 14th, and the show's going until after midnight. So if you're there at midnight, that's my birthday, and I would really love it if as many friends as I could get could come to this show. Just to be somewhere with everybody that I love on my birthday would be a wicked, insane experience for me. And also, it's a great cause, and there are great bands, so there's a lot of reasons for you to show up. And we also have a metal show coming the 27th, but like I said, that also hasn't dropped. This show is kind of an awkward day. This show's dropping on a Wednesday, but the next show is dropping on a Friday. So, pretty soon after, and I'm sure by this Friday I will have way more information to be able to give you guys in regards to both of those shows. So here's hoping. But I just wanted to get this up and running and hit the ground running, I guess, in regards to introducing you to me and what I've been up to, rather than waste a bunch of time on it. So yeah, this has been The Agency. I hope that you like it. Obviously, when you start anything new, it's going to be a work in progress, so hopefully I'll get some things situated and figured out, and guests on here, and a bunch more interesting stuff, and a video aspect, which there is supposed to be, except I thought it would be really boring if you were just watching me sit in a room by myself in the dark. So when I start getting friends on here, there will definitely be a video aspect. But until then, this has been The Agency. You should listen to Bullpup and every band that I mentioned, but also some of the farawayers, Stay Here, American Beauty, and Burnsy, and anything else that I drop in the description down below. Like I said, I have a playlist that I'll be dropping there. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. My name is Bailey, and I will see you next time.